Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti. I am MrPhotographer.com. In this video, I want to talk a little bit more about Luminar AI. But before I do, I just want to mention something very quickly. In the past, I've done 2 videos on Luminar AI, and I did receive a little bit of criticism for those videos. Specifically, people accused me of being a cheerleader for Luminar. Well, if you've ever watched any of my videos, from the very first video I ever did 7 or 8 years ago, to the video I just did 2 or 3 days ago, you'll see that I tend to be very positive in my videos because that's who I am as a person. I'm a positive person. So I tend to be positive. I very rarely will do a negative video. There's a lot of photographers creating YouTube videos that are really negative. I'm sure you've seen the headlines, Nikon stinks or Sigma art lenses are garbage or something like that. Well, that's really not who I am. I tend to be positive. And I bring this up because I was invited to take part in a Zoom conference with a number of other affiliates with Luminar. And they actually demonstrated to us the software in action. In the past, I was involved in a couple conference calls and they only showed us screenshots and they talked about the software. Well, with this last conference call, they actually showed us a working copy. Now, unfortunately, I still don't have a beta copy of my own, but hopefully I will get one within the next month. And when I do, and if they allow me, I will do a video showing it to you so you could see it working as well. Until then, I'll just talk about what I saw. And actually what I saw was something very impressive. Now, I'm going to stop short of calling it earth-shattering or groundbreaking. It's going to change the way we process images. I'm going to stop short of calling it that. But what I will say, I've never been more impressed by a piece of software for post-processing images. I was really impressed. They demonstrated a few things to us, and it wasn't just a scripted demonstration where they showed us the software doing a few things that they knew it could do well. They actually took questions, and many of the questions involved, well, what if you do this, this, or this, and they had to demo it in the software, and the software performed well. So I was super impressed. Now, in this video specifically, I just want to talk about a couple things. First of all, I want to talk about Sky AI because that's getting a lot of buzz recently, and I actually saw some articles about it already, about what to expect with the new Sky AI that'll be coming out. And I want to talk about layers because, as I mentioned in my last video, they're getting rid of layers. There's not going to be layers any longer in Luminar, beginning with Luminar AI. And I want to explain that a little better because they did explain it to us. So I have a better grip on why it doesn't need layers, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. Let's talk about the Sky AI first. You can see Sky AI 2.0 with water reflections. I want to stress, Luminar is supposed to ship, Luminar AI is supposed to ship the end of December, the holiday season. When it does ship at the end of December, it will not have Sky AI 2.0 in it. It will have Sky AI 1.0 in it. And that is going to be pretty much the same as the Sky replacement filter that is in Luminar 4. But in January or February, they're going to have an update to Luminar AI, and it will include Sky AI 2.0, and then you'll be able to add reflections to your image. And you can see here, there's the lightning in the sky that was replaced, and it also is in the water as well, so it's reflected in the water. And you can see, so you could have something like this. You could replace the sky and have the reflection of that sky automatically put in the water. And you can see that there's a slider here for water reflection, and there's also for ripples. So you could make sure that it looks real. You could just put the sky down there, and it won't look right if you don't add ripples. So they actually have a slider for that. But I want to stress that that will not be released when Luminar AI comes out at the end of December or during the holiday season. It will be an update to Luminar AI, which they're planning for January or February. Now, they have been kind of loosey-goosey on their time frames in the past. So if I ever get any more information, exactly when Sky AI 2.0 will be included in Luminar AI, I will let you know. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is layers. I had mentioned in the past video, that they're totally getting rid of layers. And I was kind of upset by that because I use layers a lot. And I know many of you were upset by it because you emailed me about it. But they kind of explain the workflow that you would use without layers. Now, masking is still there, so you could still do masking. It's going to be more of a workflow that is akin to a cross between Photoshop and Lightroom. For example, I have this image here. I processed it. Let's say, though, that I want to brighten her face and I want to whiten his teeth, just for the sake of argument. Well, I would use a brush, right? A local adjustment brush. So I would get a brush and I would brighten her face with a brush. Then I'd get a second brush and I'd whiten his teeth with the second brush. And let's just say I want to smooth his skin. I'd get a third brush, smooth his skin. Then let's say that the grass is a little bit too saturated. So maybe I'd get a fourth brush and I'd brush in the grass and I'd desaturate the grass. Then let's say the sky is a little bit too cool and I want to warm it up. So I would get maybe a graduated filter or maybe another brush, depending, and I would warm up the sky. So those are all local adjustments you would do to the image in Lightroom. Now, conversely, if I did that in Photoshop, I would bring the image over into Photoshop. I would add a new layer. I would, on that layer, brighten her face, add a second layer, or third layer, technically. And on that one, I'd whiten his teeth, and then another layer for the grass, and another layer for the sky. So we're using all these other layers. While in Luminar AI, it's, as I mentioned, kind of a cross between those, because what you would do is you'd have the image, then you would go to local adjustments, and you would do a local face AI adjustment, choose her face, and with that local face AI adjustment, I could whiten her teeth, I could smooth her skin, I could brighten her face, I could make her eyes bigger, I could slim her face, whatever I could do there. Then I could add a second face AI adjustment, and I could do his face, and I could do the same thing there. Then I could add, let's say, a local adjustment brush for the grass. I could add a graduated filter for the sky. I could do a sky IA filter and replace the sky if I wanted to, right? So I could do all these adjustments. Masking is included in all those adjustments, so masks are there. So it's kind of a cross a little bit, but it's kind of maybe a little bit more like Lightroom. Now, where it differs is you're allowed only 10 of those local type adjustments per image. That I kind of, you never want to be limited, because like in Photoshop, you could just put like 30, 40, 50 layers, right? Of course, the image is going to get huge, but you could do all those layers. And as far as I know, you could have like unlimited number of brushes, let's say, in Lightroom. But here you're limited to 10, and it's 10 total. So I do a face AI local adjustment for her face, a face AI local adjustment for his face. And then maybe I do a brush for the grass. So that's 3 adjustments right there. I only have 7 to go. I do something for the sky. That's, the fourth one. I only have 6 to go. So you're limited to 10. But again, it kind of is a lot easier for many people. After teaching post-processing for so long, the number one thing I find that people get confused about with Photoshop is layers. And you might think back, those of you that are more experienced, when you were learning, maybe layers were a little confusing at first. And they're trying to make the software as easy to use as possible. And I could understand why they did eliminate layers. So layers aren't there, but they're kind of there. They're just not, accessible over on the right-hand side. I can't click on a layer for, let's say, that I processed her face, but I could click on the face AI filter that I did for her face, or the face AI filter I did for his face, and so on. So I could come in and do that all very easily. So one thing that is missing, though, that some of you may use and you're going to miss is luminosity masks. So you won't have luminosity masks anymore. Then with luminosity mask, you typically do need 2 layers, right? You need a dark layer and a light layer. And it's just not going to be that way anymore in Luminar AI. So I wanted to bring that out there. So they did demo some other things, specifically as I go down through here. Let's go here. This Bokeh AI. This there's also a I forgot what they called it. Is it in here? It's like mood. I don't know. There's another thing they did. Atmosphere AI. That was it. When you load an image into Luminar AI starts calculating depth data, meaning They know what's in the foreground, they know what's in the midground, they know what's in the background, and they know what's in the image. They know that people are there. They know that grass is there. They know that a fence is there. They knows that a sky is there. If there were mountains there, it would know that mountains were there. And it discerns those. It knows they're mountains. It's not a lake, right? If there was a lake or an ocean, it knows it's a lake or ocean. It knows what's there. And because it has this depth info and knows what's in those depths, you could do realistic bokeh. So you can't afford, let's say, f a 1.2 or 1.4 lens, and you just have your kit lens, which is f a 3.5 to f a 5.6, don't sweat it. You could take an image with that lens, and because it knows the depth in the image, it could do realistic bokeh, or it could add atmospheric effects like fog. For instance, if I added fog to this image, the fog would be more noticeable in the background than it would be in the foreground. And if you did that in Photoshop, you'd have to mask out the foreground and use different density brushes to try to make it look realistic. Well, this does it all automatically. So it'll have the fog heavier in the background, less heavy in the foreground. So I was super impressed with all of that kind of depth things that you could do to an image. They also demoed the templates. And I had mentioned that in the previous two videos. And unfortunately, I don't have an example on this page of the templates, I don't think. But yeah, right here. The templates are pretty interesting because Luminar AI knows all the elements in an image. Like in this image here, it would know that there's buildings, there's a sky, it knows it's nighttime, it knows, where the buildings are in space. It will come up with some suggestions that fit the elements that are in that scene. So if I shot an ocean scene and it had cliffs and rocks and had a person in it, and it would know where the person is and that it is a person. It knows there's cliff, rocks, beach, it knows there's sand. It comes up with suggestions that fit that image. And the suggestions too are super creative in that it's not just one type of suggestion. It could give you a real noir look, let's say, to that image. And then again, it could give you a real like spring summery look or something like that to the image. So it would take you down creative avenues that you might not have tried if you just loaded the image, let's say, in Lightroom and started processing it. And again, with templates, you could just, kind of like a preset, like you could click on it and just accept it. Or you could use it as a starting point and then process off it. So templates are pretty interesting. I was pretty impressed with the few examples they showed of the templates. So that's another thing that as soon as I do get a beta copy of the software and they allow me to do a video demonstrating it, I will try to show that to you so you understand better what it means. Now, my recommendation, now in the description below the video, I'll have links to it and you could buy it. My recommendation though is, unless you want, some take advantage of that special sale, wait until you actually see me demoing it so that you could determine whether it's actually something you would use and then purchase it then. Like I said, hopefully I get that beta copy within a month or so. But if you want to, again, purchase it, the link to the software will be in the description below this video. I also have my discount code there. I'm not sure if my discount code will work on it, though. It often won't work on sale items. So that's it. Stuff I learned recently about Luminar AI. Thank you, everyone who watches my videos. I really do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.